The second thing that was very attractive was a Muslim family. This was quite surprising to me because the number of women who said to me, there was a Muslim family in our neighborhood and they invited me to their house. And it was the first time that I saw a vision of a family that I would love to have myself, That was quite revealing. It was quite surprising to me because, I don't know, I guess sometimes we assume that family is normal, right? For everyone. But many of them some of them had gone through quite difficult experiences in their childhoods, or they came from broken families, or they themselves didn't see any kind of prospect of having a loving family. There was no kind of path, in a way, set out for them to know how to go about finding a spouse, settling down. It was all kind of through trial and error. And I think seeing a Muslim family, seeing a big family especially, and their generosity was very attractive to them. In fact, I think for many of them, it was more attractive than any words, really. It was the thing that it was a vision, I guess, for the future that they could see for themselves. And also this sense of belonging that Muslim families gave them. So right. I don't think we realize how many people out there are lonely, and kind of don't really have a sense of community anymore. I don't know if it's because of the Thatcher years or what, the whole sort of, there's no such thing as society years. But it seems that people are very fragmented. And when they are welcomed into the bosom of a Muslim family, or when they're welcomed by a community, that just has an impact on them, Right. That was a theme that kept coming up. Is there anything you want to ask me about that?
No, I'm just it's fascinating what you're saying. The things I didn't know about they tend to be more mature women over 30, that I didn't realize. And just to share the impact of the generosity and warmth of families being a fundamental, reason and contributing factor in their embracing Islam. Very interesting.
So the women who I was interviewing at the time when I was interviewing them, and when they embraced Islam, they were over 30. But their interest in Islam sometimes had been there from teenage, That was very interesting as well. Wow. So I remember one lady, her story is just quite mind-blowing, actually. She grew up in the care system. Okay, she grew up in the care system in the UK, which basically means she wasn't taken care of, right, by anyone. And the reason why she ended up in the care system was, and by the way, all the women I interviewed happened to be white or British or...
I asked that about the ethnic background. So most of them did you say all white, you say?
The ones that I interviewed in depth, yes, they were all white. They were British and they were white. One of them was, I think, Italian and, Italian origin. Right. And one was mixed race, but she would pass as white if you just saw her, So I interviewed them face to face. That's just a point I wanted to make, interesting point. So this lady, she, when she was 5 years old, she was knocked over by a car. Okay, she was walking out in the street. She was left to her own devices. Her parents were alcoholics. They had passed out, on the sofa or something. She just wandered out into the street and knocked over by a car. So picked up by the social services, and first of all ambulance, right, and then social services, taken away from her parents and into the care system. Parents, both of them passed away during her teenage years. So she basically became an orphan. And she was pregnant by the age of 16, right? She said, nobody knew where I was. I was just doing whatever I wanted. And fast forward to maybe her 20s, I would say, and she's working with a Muslim woman. And in her workplace, this is where this Muslim woman one day invites her to her house for dinner, okay? And she went to her house for dinner, and she said this was the first time she'd ever seen a normal family, and been welcomed by one, And I think that was a big turning point for her. And then after that, she began reading the Quran. Her friend actually gave her a copy of the Quran, taught her some prayers, encouraged her to pray and talk to God. She was more of an atheist, I would say. She said, I thought, well, I've had such a bad life, why me? The typical kind of feelings that people have when they've had a tough life and they've never felt they'd had a relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was probably one of the most stark reminders, I think, for me, like as an interviewer, that there were people who actually had been through a lot, sometimes people like her. And Islam actually gave them, or at least they were looking for within Islam, one of the things they were looking for was a new way of life, a new way of looking at the world, a new way of relating to men,
Yeah.
So, but I think the Muslim family, as we just mentioned, was very key in that.